Today in the show, we're going to be talking about the announcement that Young Justice Season 3 is officially happening. So WB Animation have confirmed that Young Justice Season 3 is going to be happening. I do just want to state a few things though. We don't know where episodes are going to be airing. There's a lot of misinformation going around saying that new episodes are going to be on Netflix, when the reality is that's not confirmed. We don't even have a premiere date yet. All we know is production has only just started, which means at earliest we could conceive us seeing these new episodes around this time 2017. But they said their reason behind creating new episodes of Young Justice was the rally cry that fans had. Fans really pushing to get a Young Justice Season 3, which is curious to me because how long have fans been pushing for a Teen Titans Season 6? Longer, and I would say they've been pushing harder. So it's really interesting that they justify doing a Season 3 with this reasoning. I think there has to be some higher up explanation. With this all being said, I'm going to be talking about 3 things I want from Young Justice Season 3. Number 1, I want them to fix the tonality and message of Young Justice. My main issue with the Young Justice cartoon is that it's based off a comic that's got a very different tone to it, and I don't understand why they called it Young Justice. If you're going to adapt something, you don't need to make a panel by panel recreation of it. You don't even need to use the same characters when it comes to comics, but you do need to capture the original tone of the comics. That's the only way you can justify making all of these changes while still calling it the same title. They just really didn't capture the tone of Young Justice. If you look at the Young Justice cartoon, it's nothing like Young Justice, it's nothing like Teen Titans. It's actually a lot like Grant Morrison's JLA, which to me reads as they wanted to make a Justice League cartoon, but for some reason WB wouldn't let them, so they had to settle for Young Justice, but still tried pulling off the Justice League thing anyway, and by doing so they butchered a well-loved property. This being said, a lot of people's first exposure to the mantle of Young Justice was through the cartoon, and there is nothing wrong with liking Young Justice if you do. Like, I want to make that very clear. If you really like the tone, that is fine, but I would advise that you go and read the comics and just try to understand that Young Justice isn't trying to be the comics, it's kind of butchering the original, and as long as you can kind of accept that that's kind of a fucked up thing that this cartoon is doing, it's fine. Just be aware. Number 2, revisit the storylines of 2 of my favourite characters from DC Comics, Secret and Clarion the Witch Boy. Out of all the characters that were changed for the Young Justice cartoon, no one else experienced as much change as Secret and Clarion the Witch Boy. I'll explain Secret as best as I can. Basically, her name was Greta, and she was murdered by her brother Harm. He basically dropped a working radio in her bath, electrocuting her to death. Because she had so much unfinished business, she was then granted all the same powers as the Spectre. And after this, she became a guardian of life and death. In fact, the only reason she wasn't more powerful than the Spectre was because she was still essentially human. Not only human, a human teenage girl. She didn't have it in her to kill, she didn't have it in her to maim, but she could have. She could have been more powerful than some of the most powerful heroes in the DC universe. When it comes to Clarion the Witch Boy, I was very vocally and physically upset by how they changed him. Clarion's not a villain. He's curious. He isn't from our world per se. He's from a village underneath New York called Limbo Town. Clarion is a witch boy and he wants to learn everything. He's very, very curious. He's got a lot of questions, but because these witch men and witch boys, witch women and witch girls kind of grow up in a puritanical society that teaches necromancy instead of Christianity, from a very young age, his curiosity was always squashed down. So when he finds himself up in the surface world, he's able to be as curious as possible, which is sometimes why he comes across as a villain, when in reality he's just curious and he doesn't understand the difference between good and evil because in his society it was never properly taught. Fun fact, Clarion is actually descended from the missing colony of Roanoke. And number 3. Now this is just how I imagine Young Justice Season 3 starting out. I could imagine the original Young Justice team having been dissolved for several years at this point. I think they will probably keep up the tradition of doing a time skip for every new season. And by this point, Young Justice has been dissolved. Dick Grayson is now on a team called the Outsiders, which is very, very similar to what happened to Young Justice in the comics after the team was dissolved. Dick Grayson founded the Outsiders. So in the comics there will be an event called Graduation Day, where Donna Troy and Omen were killed, and this would cause the Titans and Young Justice to split up. As a result of this, Dick Grayson, who was a member of the Titans at this point. Fun fact, Dick Grayson was never actually in Young Justice in the comics. He would go on to form a team called the Outsiders, replace the death of Donna Troy with the death of Wally West, and have that cause Young Justice to dissolve and Dick Grayson to go on to form the Outsiders. This would actually make way for a whole new team of Young Justice characters that not only have their adult counterparts to go against, but they also have the Outsiders to go against, who obviously don't want them to be Young Justice. This would allow them to capture the original tone of the comics while not foregoing their previous continuity. I think the character we can all expect to see there is Damian Wayne, so maybe they could utilize Damian Wayne to do this and have him work alongside Clarion the Witch Boy and reintroduce Secret. I would kind of like to see Young Justice team up with the Super Young team in Japan, especially because the Super Young team are so different from Young Justice. Young Justice are actually there to save the day. As much as they're having fun being heroes, they actually have a job to do and they're passionate about this job. The Super Young team are doing it for fame. They have a PR company and everything. They do brand endorsements. They're great. Overall, I can't really say I've got mixed feelings about Young Justice Season 3. I've just got a lot of hopes for it, because I want to like it. I want to like it so bad. I want to be in there with everyone else saying, yeah, this is great, but because I expect from something that calls itself Young Justice for it to reflect the tone and personality of the original comic, if it doesn't do that, it fails for me. And Young Justice Season 1 and Season 2, as much as it had great stories, it failed for me. I don't want this to be a failure. Okay guys, that is it for today. So are you excited for Young Justice Season 3? Please let me know in the comments down below. And where do you think it's gonna air? Personally, I'm putting my money on Netflix just because that seems to be the popular opinion at the moment, and I don't really have an opinion on anything. So please let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more history videos. And also don't forget to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, support the show by checking out my Patreon if you want to see bigger and better and more history videos. And also don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective. You know, it's right there, you've got the source material right there. If you're confused about the tone, look back at that. And okay, I get it, you might have wanted to do like a Grant Morrison JLA thing, but then why say you're doing Young Justice? It makes no sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, just do Young Justice.